You know, in the grand story of life, there's always been one final, non-negotiable chapter, the end. But what if that wasn't entirely true? What if, hidden in the rulebook of biology, there were loopholes, and some creatures have already found them? So let's start with a massive question, one that has fascinated us forever.
Inevitable?
Is death the one thing we all think is certain, actually avoidable? Well, it turns out nature might just have some pretty surprising answers for us. Look, for the vast majority of life on Earth, the clock only ticks forward. But for a select few, the rules seem to bend. They've developed these extraordinary strategies not just to survive, but to flat out defy the very process of decay and finality. Okay, our first stop is a strategy that sounds like it's pulled straight from science fiction, the ability to simply press pause on life itself. And the master of this is one of the toughest animals we've ever found. Meet the tardigrade. And please, don't let its size fool you. This little micro animal, which people affectionately call a water bear, is one of the most unbreakable creatures ever discovered. Its secret isn't strength, it's the power of suspended animation. So when things get really tough, the tardigrade doesn't fight back. It just shuts down. It enters what's called a ton state, basically dehydrating itself into this tiny, seemingly lifeless ball. Its metabolism drops to a staggering 1/100th of 1% of normal. I mean, that is about as close to being dead as you can get with actually being dead. And this state allows it to endure the absolutely unthinkable. We're talking about the hard vacuum and radiation of outer space, being literally boiled in water or frozen to temperatures just a hair above absolute zero, the coldest temperature that is theoretically possible. And it can do this for decades, just waiting for things to get better. Yeah, that's minus 458 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists have subjected them to this for hours, then brought them back to room temperature, and they just came back to life. So for the tardigrade, death isn't some final event, it's just a condition it can simply wait out. All right, so from pausing life, we're now moving on to our next strategy. Not just repairing the body, but completely rebuilding it, while at the same time stopping the aging process dead in its tracks. So, meet the axolotl. This kind of charming-looking salamander from Mexico is an absolute master of regeneration. While some animals can regrow a tail, the axolotl takes this to a whole new level, really pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible for vertebrates. And we're not just talking about regrowing a lost limb here. We are talking about rebuilding it perfectly: bones, muscles, nerves, the whole shebang. It can regenerate damaged parts of its heart and even its brain. And maybe most importantly, it heals without forming any scars, an incredible ability that we humans lose very, very early in our development. But its regeneration powers are tied to an even stranger secret, one that we measure using something called an epigenetic clock. Okay, so think of it as your body's biological age. It's a measure of the wear and tear on your genes from just living life, which is often really different from your actual age in years. And this is where it gets truly fascinating. An axolotl's chronological clock keeps ticking on, right? It can live for over 2 decades. But its biological clock, that measure of wear and tear, researchers found it just stops. At 4 years old, its body effectively stops aging on a cellular level, living the rest of its life in this permanent state of arrested development. This is exactly why scientists are so fascinated. I mean, by studying how the axolotl can regenerate perfectly and stop its own biological clock, they're hoping to unlock brand new frontiers in wound healing and maybe even anti-aging therapies for us. Okay, so we've seen how to pause life and we've seen how to rebuild it. But what about the most radical strategy of all? Just hitting rewind and starting all over again. Let's take a look at how that is even possible. This tiny creature here is called Turritopsis dohrnii, but it's way better known as the immortal jellyfish. And it has absolutely earned that name because it can do something that seems biologically impossible. When it gets old or injured, it doesn't just heal, it literally grows young again. The process is called transdifferentiation. Sounds complicated, but here's how it works. When the adult jellyfish, the medusa, gets stressed out, its cells do something absolutely incredible. They revert, changing back into the cells of a juvenile. The entire animal then settles down and transforms back into a polyp. That's its earliest life stage, which can then bud off and create a whole new colony, effectively restarting its life completely from scratch. This quote just perfectly captures how mind-bending this whole thing is. It's like a kind of biological alchemy. The adult form, which should be the end of the line, literally turns itself back into the beginning. This isn't just healing, it's a complete, total reversal. Now, it's really crucial to understand this. Biologically immortal is not the same thing as invincible. These jellyfish don't die of old age. That's true, but they can still be eaten by a fish or get sick and die from a disease. Their trick is a defense against breaking down from the inside, not against threats from the outside. So, we've paused, we've rebuilt, and we've rewound the clock. But what does it all mean? What can these creatures, operating on the very fringes of what we consider life and death, teach us about our own biology? This table really lays it out perfectly. You've got 3 incredible loopholes. The tardigrade hits pause, entering that state of suspended animation. The axolotl chooses to rebuild, regenerating itself perfectly while freezing its biological age. And the immortal jellyfish hits rewind, reversing its entire life cycle to start all over again. You know, these are so much more than just biological curiosities. They are living, breathing challenges to our most fundamental concepts. They prove that aging, decay, and even the direction of the life cycle aren't the fixed, immutable laws we always thought they were. And as biologist Maximina Yoon points out, these creatures give us a blueprint of what's possible. They show us that nature has already solved problems we're just now beginning to understand. So the big question now is, what can we learn from these masters of survival, and how might their secrets one day redefine our own future?